Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this is going to be the official release video of the 9.1 Warlock Sanctum of Domination spreadsheet, very similar to the one that I made in patch 9.0. Now, if you guys have been watching videos over the past couple of months, I did indeed mention it at the start of most of those videos, mentioning that the tier 3 Felgar rank of my Patreon or higher does indeed get early access to it. Now, I don't exactly know when 9.1 is coming out. Honestly, I don't really have any idea. But with all of the speculation and hype and things that are really cranking up around, just Twitter and social media and the race to world first and everything else, I am assuming that the leaked release date of the end of this month is indeed correct. If I'm wrong, honestly, it's probably okay because I need more time to get things done in the first place. But I want to hope for the best, but plan for the worst timing wise, which means I want to get the spreadsheet out to you guys. Blizzard has, from what I would assume, concluded raid testing of Mythic Sanctum of Domination on PTR. We might see maybe one or two more bosses tested next week if there's one or two changes they make to them. But for the most part, Sanctum feels like it's done. The raid feels like it's in a much better place than Castle Nathria was at this point. We were testing bosses in Nathria, I think even after release. We tested some bosses 5-6 times. These bosses feel like they're pretty much ready to go, barring a few changes to Sylvanas, maybe some bugs on KT, little things here and there, but that can be tuned, well, pretty easily. I will have a link to the spreadsheet down below. We're going to review all the tabs today. If you guys have any questions about them, or I guess anything in the document, feel free to drop it in the comment section below. I'll be sure to get back to you. There might be a couple typos, maybe like errors, issues, whatever. If there are, I'll be proofreading it again, probably over the next day or so. Probably find a couple of them while we're actually going over it here as well. But either way, hopefully it helps you guys out. With that being said, let's get into the spreadsheet. Okay, now I would give a flashbang warning, but it's already too late. I'm sorry, I can't make the document any darker. I can't put it in dark mode because it makes my whole screen go translucent. We can't do it. You got to look at this. I'm sorry. There's a link down below. With that being said, so let's get into it. Social media links appear: YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Discord, Patreon. If you want to hop in Discord, follow me on YouTube, whatever, what have you, Twitch, there you go. So if I end up updating the document anymore, which I'm going to probably a good bit, I will indeed post the updated date up here. If you want to make a note of it, a mental note saying, hey, he updated something. So very similar to the 9.0 document, the first page, Sanctum of Domination bosses. I know some things might be behind my camera a little bit here. I'll do my best to get it out of the way. Everything should be fine. So this is a very in-depth page talking about every single boss in the raid. Terragru, Eye of the Jailer, the 9. Remnant of Ner'zhul, Soul Render, Painsmith, Guardian, Fate Scribe, Kel'Thuzad, all the way down to Sylvanas herself. Every single testing. Heroic. Mythic. Every single link to every single video I tested every single boss is here. So if you want to reference this fight on Heroic, this fight on Mythic, go for it. Every single one is here, barring Sylvanas on Mythic, because they will never test a final boss on Mythic difficulty. Now it explains fight type being single target or single target and cleave. A great example being the 9, 2 target in phase 1, technically 3 target, and then patchwork for the second phase. It shows basically every fight. Single target with irrelevant orb cleave. It's sort of relevant, but once again, we go more in depth on that in the fight description here. If you want to watch the actual testing videos, we talk a little bit about that there as well. One of the big things here, recommended spec. So we've talked a lot about this, and the next tab here is indeed Warlock Sims. If you haven't seen that, I put out a video a couple days ago. Feel free to check that out. There's also a link to that video in this tab. But either way, recommended spec. So we know this tier is probably going to be a pretty big Destro tier. If you want to min-max a couple single target fights, you're probably playing Demonology. There's a chance for Affliction to maybe be okay on a fight like the 9, maybe like a KT if they end up fixing the fight, but it's buggy right now. So for the most part, you're going to see a lot of Destro here. Maybe a mention of Demonology, but this is probably going to be changing more to just one recommended spec, unless there's really an option of playing 2 or 3. Terragru, Demonology, Destro. Demonology is our best single target spec this tier, but Terragru is the first boss in the raid. You can bring a 10-man raid to it week 1 and it'll probably die on Mythic. It's a very easy boss. It's a good boss for an anima power gimmicky kind of, I guess, introduction to the raid. It's a good boss, but it's probably not gonna be very difficult. Either way, recommended spec, Demonology followed by Destruction. The first spec here is the one that I would recommend, number 1, followed by number 2, most likely being what you would want to play. actual talents here: Demonic Strength, Calling, Vile Fiend, Grimoire Felguard. Now, I will say, if there is a slash in the talents here, like for example, Destro here, for the most part, Flash Over, Entropy. There's a slash here though. Flash Over, then Entropy, Reverse Entropy, slash SB for Shadow Burn. That means that either of those options, those talents, technically can be an option. It's also sort of here, Roaring Blaze versus Reign of Chaos. I would still opt for Roaring Blaze here, but there's more potential for playing that talent on that fight than others. So that being said, Demonology, if you want to min-max the Terror Grew, Destro, all three do have potential on Soul Render. I'm feeling it's more of a destruction fight, personally. I'm probably going to update this at some point. It's just awkward with ad spawn times and how fast they die. I just don't think, barring the Gateway utility, it's a very good Warlock fight. It's fine, but it is what it is. Painsmith, Destro, Guardian, Demonology / Destro. Af is our worst single target spec. Guardian is the second pure patchwork boss of the tier. It's the Sludge Fist boss of the tier. So if you're looking to min-max your Demonology or your single target damage, you're probably playing Demo here. This is going to be a really tight, as long as things are tuned properly, HPS check, DPS check, Enrage. It's going to be probably similar to what Sludge Fist was in Castle Nathria Prog, especially during the Race to World First, being a really, really tight timer on this fight. So if that's the case, Demonology is your best single target spec, at least it is at this point. There's a bit of a shift there. Then Fate Scribe Destro, KT Destro, Af, and Sylvanas being Destro. Now, keep in mind here, if you're not going for like a Hall of Fame or World First, obviously a Hall of Fame, the way I try to put it is if your guild's going for a common goal, you should like a Hall of Fame or Server First, whatever. If they're pushing for a goal, you should be playing the best spec on each fight. Personally, in my opinion, if you want to come in and play Af on Sylvanas playing with your toes, go for it. If your guild doesn't care, then you shouldn't care either. But if your guild has a common goal, I feel you probably should, you sort of owe it to them just to play the best spec on each fight. The spec that gives your guild the best chance at killing the fight the fastest. Either way, spec breakdown here. Recommended legendaries here. It doesn't really change a whole lot. Demo, Wilfred's, Af, Synergy, Malefic. I do still feel Malefic Wrath is your best single target legendary, but it is very, very, very minuscule. Like a double-digit DPS difference from Sims from what I've seen. So I think Synergy's fine there too. Destro basically Synergies across the board. There's not really a whole lot changing here. There's a bit of an option for Wilfred's on KT, maybe Sylvanas, but honestly, Cinders is just so strong. And once again, if you want to read a brief breakdown note-wise of each fight, it says single target base for Terra Grew. It goes into detail. Single target fight in disguise. The orbs do not need to be killed ASAP. They do later on in the fight, but once again, we'll elaborate more on this the further we go into the actual tier. Single target fight with presumably a tight DPS, an HPS check. Boss phase is at 80-60-40 roughly. Ad spawn every X amount of time, and KT, everything's broken down basically whatever you want here. And if you want to watch a POV of it, there you go. Moving on to tab 2, 9.1 Warlock Sims. So this tab is not, there's not a whole lot to this tab. It's basically just pictures of the Sims that I put out in the video a few days ago. If you haven't seen that video, scroll down, there's a link right here, click it, and it will bring you to that video. So, which has all the actual sim profiles you can look at, as long as, I think they're active for 3 months. So if you're watching this video in like September, well, sorry, but it's June. So anyways, yeah, so one target, 5 minutes for Demonology, Demonic Strength, Demonic Calling, Vile Fiend, Grimoire, Demonic Consumption, and this is Carnivorous Stalkers, the Conduit, versus Fel Commando. Very, very close here. Fel Commando is more consistent. Carnivorous Stalkers has a bit of a higher upside, but it's a bit more RNG based. This is patchwork. This is 4 targets, 1 minute. Basically the closest thing you can get to replicating like a trash pack in Mythic Plus. Dreadlash, Demonic Calling, FTS, Grimoire Felguard, Demonic Consumption, Carnivore Stalkers, and this is actually playing Grim Inquisitors Legendary. Once again, if you want to hear more about these Sims, the video down below goes much more in depth on all of them. So keep in mind, this is all going to be 4 target 1 minute Sims for each spec you see here, and single target 5 minute Sims here. So 7.14. This is all simmed with my character copied from retail to PTR with 3 potency conduits. Three. There you go, 3. Jeez. I didn't put in, 280 eye level gear or anything crazy. This is my character copied over. 1 target, 5 minutes demo. Destro looking at about 6.8k, playing Eradication versus Flash over here. Eradication did indeed gain value because of the changes to pet damage now being affected by it and stuff. Either way, Flash over Eradication still solid, 6.7 to 6.8k DPS. You can see in 4 target, obviously a very strong damage profile. Reign of Chaos gains a tremendous amount of value compared to where it is here in single target, because 4 targets, AoE, Immolation Aura, multiple Infernals, random fire spam. There you go. Moving on to Affliction, 6.167 single target DPS. This is using the most current APL, the one that works for PTR Sims. Drain Soul, Siphon Life, PS, Haunt, Dark Soul. This is Malefic Wrath. Here is Synergy. It is a 34 DPS difference. Just do yourself a favor and don't play Wrath, play Synergy if you really want to. I would still wait until the patch has come out and things are confirmed. I wouldn't make any Legendaries now you don't have, but if it's that close, just play Synergy and take the L, because playing with this is just an L in the first place. 4 targets. Look at this. This is Decaying Soul Satchel, legendary here. Look at how big the jump is from single target to AoE. Also playing some of the seeds here. There's a massive jump here from single target to AoE, which makes sense because Decaying Soul Satchel is very good when it comes to AoE, crit applications, haste, multiplicative scaling, all of that. Third tab here, Legendaries. So this tab was here in the 9.1 document. However, it has indeed been updated for 9.1. It has your 4 Legendaries for each spec, Agony Shargen, Corruption Slow thing here. I changed it to say that it increases curse duration, so you can see it has indeed been updated for 9.1. Still gives the source where it comes from. Overall Mythic Plus grade and rating grade. Now this is all sort of opinion based, but either way, there are some clear-cut winners compared to others, you know. Wrath and Consumption here, dropping from Ventanex and Spires of Ascension, and going into like detail about where it's good, where it's bad. Once again, you know, Wrath can be very good in plus on certain weeks like Storming or weeks like Explosive, where you can chain the Wrath value if you're going fast enough from pack to pack. But if you're just a lot of downtime and it drops, you know, it can be very good on a fight like KT and Sanctum of Domination if KT is fixed and the ads give death effects. Destro, Cinders, Embers, oh dear, Madness, Cinders, play Cinders. That's done. There you go. I do need to update this here for gear slots. I thought I did actually, but either way, they added, I believe they added Implosive Potential to your bracers now. They added a 3rd slot to Implosive Potential as well as Synergy. I'm pretty sure I added it actually, which I don't know. I'm surprised why it's not here. I guess it didn't save. Either way, there's a 3rd slot for Synergy and there's a 3rd slot for Implosive Potential now because of Domination sockets in Castle, or Sanctum of Domination. So if you want to know where they come from, where to acquire them from, what they do, this is the tab that you want to see. This does indeed include the 4 new Covenant Legendaries: Decaying Soul Satchel, Shard of Annihilation, Contained Perpetual Explosion, and Languishing Soul whatever. It goes into, once again, description of where it's good, where it's bad. Exceptionally strong in Mythic Plus or heavy AoE settings, where you get cleave every minute. An A plus, or I guess an A rating for Mythic Plus, and a rating grade of B to C. This just sort of depends on what fight you're in. A patchwork fight, probably not your best option. Sort of similar to Shard of Annihilation when it comes to Necrolord stuff. It increases incinerate damage. Not amazing in plus, but can be good if you're playing Roaring Blaze on a Havoc fight or a single target fight with Destro in the raid, or whatever setting you're in. Contain Perpetual Explosion, the Venthyr one, pretty good in plus. It increases the dot damage of the actual effect by a pretty good bit, and you do indeed have the curse application from the explosion. But the problem is, you're playing Venthyr, so well, there's your problem. And this thing just sucks. I don't know why it's even here. Like, this legendary is literally dead half the time. One of the good things about playing Kyrian, if you're playing Destro, is like, it just, the target has to die with Scouring Tithe on it. So like, if you have like a Tithe, yeah, one might die and one might not. So you might get the reset and might get the actual like value off this with weird, you know, death sequencing and stuff. But for the most part, if you're in single target on a patchwork fight, this thing is just garbage. Half the time, it's just garbage. Even if it procs, still not very good. So there's that. The legendary tab has indeed been updated. If you want to know where to acquire things from, there you go. Moving on to the legendary crafting tab, which is after the legendary tab. This one goes in depth on what pieces have domination sockets on them, which another tab sort of does in a bit here, but also what pieces are on the final 2 bosses, because for some reason the last 2 bosses have a higher eye level on them again. Now I think it's sort of cool, but at the same time it just causes a lot of problems. Number one, most of Sylvanas' loot has versatility on it, which is really gross. That should just not be in this game anymore. Either way, here's Sylvanas' loot table, here's KT. They are a higher eye level, just like in Castle Nathria. They actually have names now, which we'll see in the BIS tab here, but I didn't update the images. It's fine, no big deal. So number one example here, Affliction, Wrath of Consumption, feet and back. There is no domination socket on feet or any cloaks in the raid, because they're always on the same X pieces of gear, like slot wise: helm, shoulders, bracers, chest, wrists, I think belt, and I think it's about it. Maybe something else, I can't remember them all, but either way. So recommendation here, feet, because feats have higher stat allocation than cloaks when it comes to actual raw eye level. No problem there, perfect, no harm, no foul. Unfortunately, moving on here, perpetual agony. This is agony shard gen, slot, chest, and finger. Recommended is now ring, but I think previously most everybody probably made it on a chest piece because it's a higher eye level, higher stat acquisition or allocation, however you want to word it. But now chests have domination sockets on them, so you would most likely want to put it on a ring. Yes, Sylvanas has one ring and there are multiple ring options in the raid, but you know, you're going to want that domination socket, I would assume, more than, you know, replacing a ring. This is going to be one of the big problems heading into 9.1, is that Blizzard has not given us any way to like break down legendaries with, for example, look at synergy, right? This is the tab that actually added 3 legendaries to it. This is what they weren't in this tab. I updated this tab instead here. So implosion helm, head, waist, hands. They added hands to this because your helm and your waist both have domination sockets on them. Now they both come from KT and Sylvanas too, so there's a double whammy, higher eye level and domination sockets, but hands don't. So you can just put it on your hands and you're good to go. But the problem is that when it comes to synergy and other effects, I've already made synergy on my helm, you know, a year ago when 9.0 hit or whatever. Helm and shoulders both have domination sockets on them. They're one of the 3 big pieces. Shoulders from KT and helm from Sylvanas. So your option now, your best option is technically going to be a cloak if you don't want to miss out on a domination socket. Without having any, look at all this, look at this here. Wrist has socket, chest has socket, waist has socket, wrist, head. Like, you're being pushed into potentially a suboptimal legendary as far as secondary stat distribution goes because of these domination sockets. It's a cool system, but not having a way to put one onto a legendary makes it really awkward, because from what I understand, there's not been any kind of announcement as to, hey, you can break down your old synergy or break down this whole legendary, take the soul ash out, make it on a cloak instead. There's been no mention of that. So instead of making maybe these cool legendaries, ones that have been buffed, or new covenant ones, I get to make synergy again and farm Torghast for 8 weeks. So unfortunately, I'm really hoping some kind of change is put in as far as this goes. This is going to be, you haven't heard a lot about it now, but if it goes live the way that it is, you're going to hear a lot about it when the patch hits, because people are going to be angry and frustrated that they can't play with any legendary effects, because number 1, they haven't been doing Torghast probably, and number 2, even with more soul ash dropping, it still feels bad making a legendary that you already had to make 6-7 months ago. So hopefully this is addressed, but either way, this should recommend the optimal piece. If anybody finds an error with it, let me know in the comment section. I'll be sure to update it for you guys. Conduits. This tab is similar to the 9.0 tab as well. It has all the potency conduits listed for each spec. It also has the Kyrian ones here, like, or the event there, like the universal ones, you know, Soul Tithe, Soul Eater, all of that. I did not add the new intellect one for warlocks that popped up on PTR 2 weeks ago, because we don't really know where it's from, and I don't really want to add that and put things that make things awkward. Either way, I do need to update the actual ranks here value wise. This is still 9.0 ranks. I'm probably going to make it a little easier to read other way, rank wise, like rank 133, rank 236, etc. But I have indeed updated it for Withering Bolt. You can see the values here are wrong. It's no longer 75%. I'll update these soon, whenever 9.0 is a bit more polish and things. But I did indeed add the drop source for all of them. So on top of it now, of Withering Bolt dropping off Margrave's Drama and Plaguefall, it drops off of KT. The same goes for Duplicitous Havoc. It's also Painsmith Raznal in Chansey Deep. Sylvanas, you can see the Terror here. So that has indeed been updated. The values here probably haven't changed a whole lot. This is a tiny bit of a work in progress, but I have indeed also updated the Strength and Uses tab. You can see we're talking about having Dark Caller baseline. Spelling error there, but yeah, there you go. So if you want that as a general reference, this is a great tab for it. Sanctum of Domination BIS tab. So this tab is a work in progress. This list is speculative and based on item level, not leva, level, as well as current secondary stat distribution of items on PTR. It will be updated and changed accordingly when SimC is updated with Sanctum of Domination raid items. Final 2 bosses do have increased item level, but also a good bit of versatility on them. So keep that in mind. A handful of these pieces at 259 are from Sylvanas or KT. Sylvanas has every piece with verse and X on it. It's minor verse for the ring, major verse for the helm. I think it's major verse for the other piece too, but I'm not 100%. Either way, this is sort of speculative based around what pieces have good stat acquisition or allocation for each like spec universally. I have not made a Destro demo and AF tab. I'll probably do that whenever they end up updating raid bots to have like Sanctum Domination gear on it. I tried to run profiles on my own and they're just not in there yet, so it's sort of hard to do. Now I will say it's hard to make BIS lists now, and typically I leave these out because there's just so much RNG and loot acquisition, what pieces you have, what pieces somebody else has, your secondary stats versus their secondary stats, but people always ask for these lists, so I tried to make the list as accurate as I possibly can here. If you hover over the piece and click on it, it will bring you to the actual item on Wowhead. So that works for every single piece here. There's your Veil, here's your Interplanar Keystone. When it comes to weapons, I have one hand, two hand, or like one hand offhand listed, but your best one's going to be the Maledict Opus from KT. It's a big staff. Get the big stick. There you go. So this is all here, still sort of work in progress. Consumables here if you want to look at it. Int Potion. They did indeed buff Phantom Fire pots in 9.1. They made them more consistent, but the thing is, they're still inconsistent. And what is not inconsistent? A flat intellect buff. So there's that. This also mentions domination sockets. Yes on helm, no on neck, yes shoulders, yes chest, yes bracers, yes belt, no legs, no boots, no rings, and no weapon. I left trinkets blank here because there's a handful of trinkets in the raid that have been getting buffed and nerfed, like the actual Mastery Shadow Orb, the Eye Trinket, as well as some from dungeons like Soul Letting Ruby, which is still very good and quite possibly going to be your best trinket in 9.1 at this point. They've also ended up nerfing Cube about a month ago, which just sort of flew under the radar. We'll get to that in a minute here. So we'll be filling in trinkets when we know a bit more. I'm assuming at this point, it's probably either Soul Letting Ruby or the Mastery Orb from this raid, and probably the passive like Equip Eye Trinket that gives you a secondary stat buff, but I could be wrong. That also changed a bit when they made Tazavesh not have Valor upgrades either, so we'll get to that. Now, the BIS Night Fae Soulbinds and Conduits here. If you're not Night Fae, it's fine. The Conduits, barring Soul Eater, which is the Night Fae Conduit here, are fine. You can still play the same, you know, Warlock based ones. Conduit 1, Focus Malignancy. Conduit 2, Withering Bolt. Conduit 3, Soul Eater. Soulbind Nia. Basically across the board. You can play Dreamweaver or Karain for Destro Plus if you want. There's some cases they made for Demo, but honestly, I think Nia is really just better the vast majority of the time. Karain does have her use with First Strike and all that stuff. I did not put it here. I'll probably edit this in so that you can play First Strike and Wild Hunt Tactics for Karain if you want. But there's that. Big thing here, we have 3 potency conduits in 9.1. So these are the combinations I've tested with on PTR the most, and more or less what I've come to like. AF single target, Malignancy, Withering Bolt, Soul Eater. The other options you have are Rolling Agony, which, as cool as it is, an Agony duration extension in single target is not very impactful, and Corrupting Leer. Corrupting Leer probably needs to be deleted at this point because they made Dark Caller baseline, and you're not going to be playing a weird minute-and-a-half Dark Lair. It's really awkward. So Malignancy, Withering Bolt, Soul Eater is what I've liked in single target for AF, and 3 target for AF. Focus Malignancy, Rolling Agony, because 3 targets, more value to be gained here, and Soul Eater. Keep in mind, Withering Bolt only works in single target. This is Withering Bolt, not Wildering Bolt. It increases your damage that you deal to the target based on the dots you have on that target. It doesn't take into account the 20 dots you have rolling on other mobs and deal all the damage to one target. It's Shadow Bolt or Drain Soul increase based on the dots you have on that one target. So Withering Bolt loses a crazy amount of value in cleave based fights. It's okay in 2 target, but it loses crazy value in 3+ targets. So we have Malignancy, Rolling Agony, and Soul Eater here. Now, keep in mind as well, Soul Eater requires targets to be stacked mostly. It's like an 8-yard radius, I think, 10 yards larger with Soul Eater. But if you have one mob, like 1, 2, 3 across the room, it's not going to hit them. So keep that in mind. But there's that. Destro, Ashen, Your Focus Malignancy. You don't take it out. Ashen, Nia's Tools, Burr, single target, and 3rd Conduit, Soul Eater. 3 target, Ashen. Duplicitous, you can play Burrs. I mean, honestly, Duplicitous, depending on the fight. And Infernal Brand or Soul Eater, depending on if it's stacked and if you're playing Random Chaos or whatever. I will say I like Infernal Brand probably more than most other people, but it's still just not very impactful. It is you're playing Random Chaos, but the problem is Random Chaos, RNG. What don't you want in raiding? RNG. Welcome to Destro. Demonology. Born of Blood, this does not change very much. It's Born of Blood all the way down. Tyrant Soul all the way down. Fel Commando, Carnivorous Stalkers. This varies depending on build you're playing. Fel Commando if playing DS. This is not a D's nuts joke. DS, Demonic Strength. Carnivorous Stalkers if playing Dreadlash. That's basically how that goes. Now, we have seen Dreadlash simming a little higher, even with Fel Commando and pure single target, but it's very, very close. I would just prefer Fel Commando with Demonic Strength, personally. But either way, it'll depend on what you're doing there. This is 1 target, 3 target. We go down here. This is the Mythic Plus setting. Nia, Af, Malignancy, Rolling Agony. Now, you have the option of playing Soul Eater here or Withering Bolt. And there is a bit of flexing you can do here. We've run Soul Eater Sims with like versus Malignancy. It favors Malignancy by like 30 DPS in single target. So if you're trying like the Af build with Sow the Seeds, but playing Siphon Life for a bit more for single target damage profile at times, it might very well just be worth going like Soul Eater, Agony, Withering Bolt. But right now, I would go Malignancy, Rolling Agony, in one of these two, depending on what you're looking for. They're both very close. If you're going more single target, I would probably go Withering Bolt just because of playing Siphon Life and the extra dot application, the Shadow Bolt damage, all that. But Soul Eater is good in single target too. This is going to take a little more testing and tweaking to try and figure out, but this is roughly where I'm at with Af and Plus. Destro, Ashen, Infernal Brand, Duplicitous if you want it, and Soul Eater. If you're not playing Karain, this should be Nia too. By the way, not Karain, Dreamweaver. This should be Nia, more or less. If you're playing Karain, you can go Wild Hunt Tactics, First Strike, Ashen, and honestly, probably Soul Eater. You can play Infernal Brand if you're playing Random Chaos, but that's that. Demonology, Nia, Born of Blood, same thing here. Tyrant Soul, and even the Dogs build. If you're playing Dogs build FTS Dreadlash, you play Carnivorous Stalkers. So there's that. Basically set in stone. When I have Sims for these, everything's more updated and APOs are working properly and things, I'm not having to like, find random backdoor ways to get them to work. I will update this page with Sims. I had it here for like the last patch. Destro 2 target, 3 target. I will do it when that is working properly. As of right now, it's not. Moving on. Trinkets. This tab is basically, sorry boys, the same as the 9.0 tab. I have updated it a bit, talking about Ruby being your best on-use trinket. Also mentioning that Imperial Ordnance is broken now. Blizzard broke double on-use trinkets in 9.1. If you use one, it puts the other on either a 30 or a 40 second cooldown, so you can't pop 2 double on-use anymore, even with Imperial's like value being delayed. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Sanctum of Domination trinkets will be added when the Sims are working properly. Now, I have sort of updated the values here a bit. I've talked about Ruby being really good, talked about Hymnal being good, but being devalued next tier. You will indeed still have Ruby that you can farm in Plus. You'll still have Changeling. You will still indeed have, technically, have option to Gladiator's Badge and things. But once again, keep in mind, the PvP items will have a lower eye level in PvE as long as that change, well, stays around. So this will indeed, once again, be updated when it comes, or when Raid Boss is more accurate and the closer we get to the actual patch launch. Now, the final 3 tabs here, Affliction, Destro, Demo, Dungeon, BIS. I had these up from 9.0 because once again, people really wanted BIS lists. And if you click on the items here, it will indeed still bring you to the same page from on Wellhead. Now, I'm going to say these still will be sort of accurate just because of Valor coming out and having basically the same options in Mythic Plus that we've had for a long time, but the raid might end up changing what you actually get here too, right? I mean, you're not like, for example, like the actual ring for Affliction here, which has a different icon on it actually. This is from Halls of Atonement. This is arguably your best AF ring, give or take at a high eye level with a socket. That might not be the case down the line when you've been clearing Sanctum of Domination for months, but this is why it's a like dungeon BIS list. So these are more or less items I would look at like potentially targeting or maybe trying to acquire early on with better stat priorities or allocations than ones you might get in certain spots. Bracers are still awkward. There's like no good haste mastery pair anywhere. The raid does have a couple of interesting pairs, but one of them is from Sylvanas, which has a crazy amount of versatility on it. So we got to see where that goes. But either way, I left these here to reference them if you guys want. Same thing as 9.0, but that's pretty much that. And that covers most of the document too. There's, I think, like 10 tabs. Once again, all the bosses here in tab 1, 9.1 Warlock Sims here in the second tab, Legendaries tab in 3, legendary crafting in 4, talking about what slot is best at this point. This might end up changing depending on certain things in Sims and whatever you end up playing. So I would encourage you to not make legendaries now if you can avoid it at all costs, because things still might get buffed, they might get nerfed, they might change domination sockets, they might change loot. Even if they don't change legendaries directly, look at how the Withering Bolt nerfs made Malefic Wrath be insane, and they nerfed Bolt 3-4 times, never touched Malefic Wrath, but nerfed Bolt multiple times, then nerfed Aft to the point where Wrath is like basically the same as Synergy again. So I would not make legendaries until you need to. I would not make them until you're walking into the raid. I know most people won't listen, but hey, don't blame me if you make the wrong one. So Conduits, once again here, this will be updated at soon in the future. Sanctum of Domination BIS list and Conduits. So I think that basically covers most of the document. A couple more tabs I'll be adding over the next few weeks, the closer we get to 9.1, I guess, speculated release and things, but yeah. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers it, guys. Thanks for watching the video. Hopefully the spreadsheet will be helpful to you guys. I put a lot of time and effort into it, which is sort of why I've been not as active on stream. Let's be honest, we're still streaming 5-6 days a week, but I took an extra day off this week just to try and get this done. Now, I do indeed have, well, I guess a couple big announcements, hopefully coming down the line soon for 9.1. No, it's not the Race the World First. I don't know what's going on with that, but I've got a couple big ones that I've been working on for a long time, which hopefully I'll be making on here and on stream in about a week or two. That'll be pushed back though if the patch is a bit late, so keep that in mind. But I'm really excited about those, and step one was getting this spreadsheet out to you guys. Any questions or concerns, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. I'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to see more WoW content that helps support the channel, be sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons below. Helps out a lot. Feel free to share the spreadsheet wherever you want now. And once again, I want to thank all my patrons. Thank you guys so much for support over the past months, year, however long. Thank you guys. I really, truly appreciate it. Hopefully the spreadsheet helps all of you guys out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch y'all again soon. Actually, in about 16 hours, Karazhan. TBC on stream. Peace.